It started behind closed doors, where most political power plays begin. In a quiet but high-stakes meeting inside the Capitol's West Conference Room, House Leader Kevin McCarthy sat across from Pam Bondi, the former Florida Attorney General turned no-nonsense congressional watchdog. Rumors had swirled for weeks that McCarthy wanted her out, too bold, too unfiltered, and far too unmanageable for the leadership's taste. McCarthy leaned in, his tone low and firm. "Pam, it's time," he said, sliding a manila envelope across the table. "This is the cleanest way out. You walk out with dignity. No press conference. No spectacle." Bondi didn't even glance at the paper. Instead, she stared at him for a long, tense moment, as if calculating every move like a chess grandmaster about to flip the board. "You want me to resign?" she finally said, calm but sharp. "Because I've been exposing things you'd rather keep buried?" He sighed, clearly frustrated. "We need unity. You've become a distraction." Pam reached out, picked up the envelope, opened it, and found the typed resignation letter already prepared with her name. Without saying a word, she slowly stood up. Then she ripped the letter straight down the middle, locked eyes with McCarthy, and slammed both hands onto the table, so hard the coffee cups jumped. "You think you can silence me," she said, her voice cutting through the room like a blade. "You just made your biggest mistake." The echo from the slammed table hadn't even faded before two staffers waiting outside poked their heads in, startled by the sound. McCarthy waved them off without taking his eyes off Pam. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," he said, his voice tighter now, his political polish starting to fray. "You're burning bridges you won't be able to rebuild." Pam leaned forward, both palms flat on the table. "You ever wonder why the American people don't trust Congress?" she asked. "It's because of backroom deals like this. Because leaders like you care more about controlling the narrative than protecting the truth." McCarthy's jaw tensed. "I've protected you from worse, Bondi. If I wanted to destroy you, I'd have done it months ago." Pam's lips curled into a defiant smile. "Then maybe it's time we see who ends up destroyed." With that, she turned on her heel and walked out the door, shredded resignation still in her fist. By the time she reached the hallway, her phone was already buzzing. Word had leaked, someone in McCarthy's camp had tipped off the press. Headlines were exploding online before she even got back to her office. Pam Bondi defies McCarthy, rips resignation, slams table in defiant stand inside her office. Aides looked stunned. One of them, a young intern, whispered, Are you really staying?" Pam tossed the shredded paper onto her desk. "Oh, I'm not just staying," she said. "I'm going public." Within the hour, Pam Bondi stood behind a podium in front of a small swarm of reporters hastily gathered outside the Capitol. Cameras rolled, flashes popped, and the energy crackled with anticipation. She didn't bring notes. "I was handed a pre-written resignation today," she began, her voice firm and clear, "by someone who thought I'd walk away quietly. Let me be clear, I was not elected to serve Kevin McCarthy. I was elected to serve the American people." Murmurs rippled through the press pool. "I was told I'm a distraction." Well, if exposing corruption, misappropriated funds, and backdoor committee deals makes me a distraction, then I wear that title with pride. She paused, letting that line land like a punch to the gut. "Let this be a warning to every power player in this building, if you try to silence me, I'll just get louder." One reporter called out, "Are you accusing Kevin McCarthy of misconduct?" Pam didn't blink. "I'm saying this, anyone trying to cover up the truth should start sweating." The briefing lasted just under 6 minutes. It was short, fiery, and completely unscripted. Exactly the kind of moment cable news producers dream about. Back inside the Capitol, McCarthy watched it live from his office. His phone wouldn't stop vibrating, calls from donors, committee heads, and worst of all, fellow leadership. He rubbed his temples, muttering, this just became a problem. But it was already too late. Pam Bondi was trending #1 nationwide. By nightfall, Bondi's team had already uploaded the press conference clip to every major platform. It had racked up over 4 million views in 6 hours. But the real storm hit when a document surfaced online, a redacted memo marked confidential, showing an internal leadership discussion. Names were blocked out, but not Bondi's. The memo labeled her as a liability due to continued non-compliance with narrative direction. The leak didn't come from Bondi. Which meant someone else in McCarthy's circle had decided to flip the board. In the Capitol cafeteria the next morning, whispers turned into open murmurs. Staffers, aides, even junior representatives were reading from their phones, replaying Bondi's speech, analyzing her wording like it was a Supreme Court opinion. Bondi wasn't backing down, she was escalating. Her next move. She walked straight into a closed-door oversight committee hearing and submitted a formal demand for a public audit of campaign funding allocations tied to McCarthy's leadership PAC. The room froze. She stared down the committee chair as she slid the folder across the table. If we're going to talk about accountability, let's start at the top. The chair, clearly rattled, glanced at the others. No one moved. No one spoke. Outside, Bondi gave a brief statement to a growing media scrum. "This isn't personal," she said. "It's procedural. If anyone in power is afraid of transparency, they shouldn't be in power." Kevin McCarthy wasn't used to being on defense. By the following morning, a carefully curated counter-narrative began leaking from his office, claims that Bondi had been emotionally unstable, combative in meetings, and prone to theatrics. Anonymous sources described her behavior as disruptive and detrimental to unity. But it wasn't sticking. People weren't buying it. The more they tried to paint her as irrational, the more the public saw her as relentless. Dangerous, to the status quo. Behind closed doors, McCarthy convened with his tightest circle. They needed to neutralize her, fast. One of his senior advisors suggested stripping Bondi of her committee roles. Hit her where it hurts, oversight. Make her irrelevant. But another voice pushed back, that'll just confirm her claims. She'll turn that into another viral speech. McCarthy slammed his fist on the table. Then we bury her in process. Drown her in ethics reviews, procedural blocks, whatever it takes. Meanwhile, Bondi kept moving. Her office filed 3 new FOIA requests tied to leadership budget expenditures and unreported donor meetings. The subpoenas weren't just paperwork, they were signals. Public ones. And McCarthy's team knew it. That evening, an unexpected twist dropped. A whistleblower from inside the leadership PAC contacted Bondi's office anonymously, with files. Encrypted. Time-stamped. Marked, "Do not disclose, internal use only." Pam's staff stared at the data dump. One folder stood out. It was labeled, "Scorched Earth." Pam Bondi sat alone in her office late that night, the soft glow of her laptop casting sharp shadows across her desk. The "Scorched Earth" folder was open, and what she was reading made her pulse slow and her jaw clench. Dozens of internal documents. Private emails. Financial spreadsheets. Names. Dates. Meetings. Backroom deals tied directly to leadership. And at the center of several correspondences, Kevin McCarthy's initials. It was worse than she expected. Donors redirected through shell foundations. Travel expenses disguised as consulting fees. Quiet payments to advisors who never appeared on any official rosters. Pam knew she had something that couldn't be walked back. She called in her communications director and legal advisor. "We're not sitting on this," she said. "But we're not rushing it either. This has to be precise." The team spent the next 12 hours combing through the files, verifying details, crafting a strategy. They didn't leak. Not yet. Instead, Pam scheduled a surprise appearance on Sunday Circuit, the highest-rated morning political show in the country. When producers asked for a topic, she gave them just 2 words: institutional rot. McCarthy, meanwhile, got wind of the data leak, but not its contents. Panic was setting in. He called an emergency leadership meeting before sunrise. "She's got something," he muttered, pacing. "Something big." His chief of staff replied nervously, "If she makes it public, you're not just looking at headlines, you're looking at hearings. Maybe even indictments." McCarthy stopped pacing. His voice dropped to a whisper. "Then we take her down before Sunday." By Friday morning, Pam's office was buzzing, but unusually quiet. Her team operated with military precision. Phones were silenced, documents air-gapped, and staff rotated in shifts. No leaks. No slip-ups. Only trust. But McCarthy's camp was already working behind the scenes. A sudden and suspicious complaint appeared at the House Ethics Committee, an anonymous allegation accusing Bondi of improperly obtaining classified documents. The timing was blatant. The language, vague. But it was just enough to force a preliminary inquiry. The goal was clear: stall her before Sunday. Muzzle her. Paint her as the one under investigation. News outlets got wind within hours. McCarthy's allies made sure of it. Pam Bondi under ethics review just days after outburst, blared a breaking headline on a major cable network. Another chirped, "Did Bondi go too far?" But Bondi was ready. She walked straight into the ethics committee hearing in a gray blazer, no notes, no lawyers. "I didn't leak anything. I didn't steal anything," she said flatly. "And I'm not afraid of this little circus. But since you're here, maybe you'd like to know what I found." She dropped a sealed envelope onto the table. "This is a courtesy copy. Redacted. The unredacted version. That one's going live Sunday morning." The room fell completely still. One of the committee members muttered, "You're bluffing." Pam smiled, cold, deliberate. "Then you've clearly never played poker with me." She turned and walked out. Her team uploaded a teaser image that evening, a shadowed file folder with the words, "The game ends Sunday, 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time." The internet went into meltdown. And McCarthy? He ordered every lawyer on retainer to cancel their weekend plans. Saturday was chaos, on both sides. McCarthy's team launched a last-ditch campaign blitz, flooding the media with talking heads calling Bondi unstable, vengeful, and obsessed with revenge politics. They even circulated a clip from an old closed-door committee meeting, edited to make her look erratic. But it wasn't landing the way they hoped. Bondi's supporters, inside and outside the Hill, were growing louder. Former officials, legal analysts, even political rivals started posting cryptic messages of support. "Sunday's going to change everything," one senator tweeted. "Some people shouldn't throw stones in glass leadership," posted another. Meanwhile, Bondi's office had turned into a war room. Her team rehearsed every second of the interview, timing, phrasing, visual cues. She wasn't just dropping documents. She was detonating a narrative. And it had to be perfect. The night before the broadcast, Pam stood at her window overlooking the Capitol dome. Her chief of staff entered quietly. McCarthy's press secretary called 3 times. "They're begging for a delay. Want to talk privately." Pam didn't even turn around. He had his chance. "They're also preparing to discredit you the moment this drops. You sure you want to do this live?" Pam turned, calm but locked in. "If I do it live, they can't spin it before it lands. We show the files. The timestamps. The signatures. And the American people watch it unfold in real time." At exactly 11:58 p.m., she posted one last message on X, formerly Twitter, "No edits. No filters. Tomorrow morning, you'll see what they never wanted you to see." And then she logged off. Washington didn't sleep that night. 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, Sunday. Live. Every major political junkie, analyst, insider, and cable news viewer was tuned in. Sunday circuit had never seen numbers like this. The intro music faded. The host's voice came in, tight with anticipation. Joining us this morning is former Florida Attorney General and current Congressional Oversight member, Pam Bondi. She appeared calm. Composed. A soft blue blazer. Minimal makeup. No theatrics, just presence. The host wasted no time. Ms. Bondi, your office claims to have uncovered internal misconduct tied directly to leadership. Do you stand by that? Pam didn't blink. Not only do I stand by it, I brought the receipts. She reached under the table and pulled out a thick binder, marked and tabbed. The cameras zoomed in. This is documentation from inside the House leadership pack. It includes misused funds, shell donor operations, unreported meetings, and yes, signatures from people at the top. She opened the first tab. Page 1, a transaction log redirecting PAC funds to a foundation owned by a leadership donor spouse. Page 2, a redacted email from a senior advisor confirming the diversion was authorized per km. The host interrupted, stunned, "Are you saying Kevin McCarthy signed off on this personally?" Pam looked straight into the camera. "I'm not saying it. The documents are." On screen, the show producers pulled up a highlighted scan, McCarthy's initials. Date. Approval tag. The host nearly choked. "Have you submitted these to any federal office?" Pam nodded. Department of Justice, IRS, and the Office of Congressional Ethics. Copies delivered this morning. Social media exploded. Cable news anchors scrambled to interrupt regular programming. Commentators on other networks were speechless. Then Pam dropped the final line, "If nothing is done after this, then the problem isn't just Kevin McCarthy, it's the system protecting him." Silence. Then applause from the studio gallery. Back at the Capitol, McCarthy stared at the screen in horror, a single line scrolling across the bottom, "Live, Pam Bondi unloads files linking McCarthy to PAC scandal." The moment the broadcast ended, Washington detonated. Hashtag Bondi files trended across every platform. Major outlets cut into scheduled programming for emergency panels. Print media scrambled for the Monday front pages. Congressional inboxes overflowed with demands from constituents, left, right, and center. Within hours, 3 prominent House members, 2 from McCarthy's own party, issued formal statements calling for an internal leadership vote. By Sunday evening, McCarthy's communications director resigned. That night, an unmarked envelope was delivered to Bondi's office. Inside was a short, handwritten note, "I warned him." Anonymous, attached was a printed screenshot, an internal chat log between McCarthy and his senior aides discussing how to blacklist Bondi from key committee access. One line was underlined, "She has no idea who she's messing with." Now she did. Monday morning, 9:42 a.m. Kevin McCarthy entered the Capitol through the side entrance. No cameras. No press conference. He walked directly to a closed-door session with House leadership. By 10:15 a.m., it was official, Kevin McCarthy stepped down as Speaker of the House. No statement. No apology. No rebuttal. Meanwhile, Pam Bondi stood before the same podium where she had first challenged him, only a week earlier. She looked out at a sea of reporters. "I didn't come to Washington to make friends," she said. "I came here to make noise. And now that we've heard it, let's get to work cleaning it up." The room erupted. Behind her, aides quietly carried in 2 more binders. Labeled, Phase 2, Senate, Phase 3, Department of Defense, the storm had only begun.